Good morning. Welcome to the Newsmaker Show, and welcome to Dr. Robert Heineman of Alfred University. Stay tuned.
Next on News Talk AM 1480 WLEA, the Newsmaker Show with Kevin Doran.
Well, there's a lot going on in the state. Of course, we have our own problems here in Hornell with the turmoil at St. James Hospital. But we're going to concentrate on the state and the nation with Dr. Heineman today. Dr. Bob, welcome to our program.
Pleased to be with you, Kevin. Pleased to get a chance at you again.
Bob, I don't look at it that way. I don't look at it as a duel. I look at it as a chance to gather information from a man who has enormous influence in the Republican circles. And that's my first question, Bob. Why have the Republicans, now that they have control of Congress, let the word out that they're not going to try to change Obamacare, that they backed away from protecting children about to be aborted after 20 weeks because they can feel pain? Why did we elect these people? We might as well have Democrats or socialists as to have these people. Now, this is your party. I don't belong to that particular party. I belong to the Constitution Party. What's your excuse, Bob, for what these guys are doing?
I'm afraid, Kevin, you still haven't, all these years of our discussions, you still haven't understood politics, Kevin. It's not a question of black and white. It's a question of compromise and working toward the good of the American people.
How about a question of life and death, Bob? How about a question of a baby feeling pain as it's being destroyed?
Yeah, well, I can't help you on that. As you know, I'm pro-life, but I'm not as pro-life as you are, and apparently the Republicans and many of the Republicans, obviously most of the Democrats, tend to be far more liberal on that point. I think basically what the Republicans are looking at is moving on to some of these other issues like energy, immigration, and some of the need to make some changes in Obamacare. In a way, you're sounding like Ted Cruz there in terms of the need to totally do away with all these programs like Obamacare. Nobody ever thought that anybody was going to do away with Obamacare. It's here to stay. And I guess you're going to continue to give it Mr. Obama's signature by calling it Obamacare.
Well, Bob, you didn't say much there to make me feel any better, but then again, neither does Boehner and neither does McConnell. All right. Is that his name, McConnell?
I believe it is, yes.
All right. The guy that I think probably in his other life was a funeral director?
Yes, that's that's again personalizing issues, Kevin. Could we keep it on a little higher plane here?
Okay, let's move to a higher plane. Albany.
That is pretty humorous, yeah.
Yeah, you talk about a fouled up place. Now we have, the funny thing is, Bob, we know from checking our website news that people are not very interested in what happens in Albany. Most New Yorkers, I suspect, wouldn't have the foggiest idea who Sheldon Silver is. So why don't you explain who he is, why he's in trouble, and what difference will it make, if any?
Well, I think you're incorrect on people not knowing who Sheldon Silver is. I think his reputation, frankly, is far wider than what you would give him credit. But be that as it may, he, of course, has been the Speaker of the Assembly for a little over 20 years now and has had tremendous power. And what has happened, of course, it appears that this power has been abused in terms of setting up arrangements where he has been able to make a lot of money off of his position of power. Now, there's nothing wrong with that if he can show that, in fact, he did something to make the money. But it appears that he's basically been selling his office to bring in a good-sized amount of money. I think Mr. Bahara is charging that he's brought in over $5 million. Now, it is clear that not a big chunk, but some 70,000, maybe 700,000, I'm not sure, he has not reported. So he has a serious problem right there. But I think the more interesting point is to watch the Democrats milling around here and their response to this. The original response was, oh, yes, we're backing Sheldon up. The speaker's been outstanding, etc. And once they got in closed session and behind closed doors, it was pretty clear that they wanted him out. And I think basically this whole corruption aura that is just permeating Albany is just too much for the Democrats at this point, and they've got to get him out of there. And I don't want to take up all your time here. You have a thought on any of that, Kevin?
Well, no, what you said I think is quite accurate. Preet, I can't pronounce the guy's last name, the fellow from the U.S. Attorney for New York City, is going after Silver. But there's also an issue behind all of that his investigation of the cancellation of the so-called Moreland Commission could lead right to the executive mansion in Albany. Is that what you understand it to be?
Well, I'm not certain. It could. Let me say that. But I do think what Governor Cuomo sees here is a window of opportunity, and he's not going to pass by the opportunity to gain greater control of government in Albany, so that when all these Democrats in the Assembly met behind closed doors, you can bet that Cuomo had a number of people in there suggesting that Sheldon Silver has to go. And you can also bet that Governor Cuomo is working diligently to obtain somebody who can be Speaker who will work with him. And so I'm thinking it may well be that Governor Cuomo has been helpful to Mr. Bahara, and there may be less interest in pushing something toward or after the governor. But there's no question that there are more indictments coming down. Bahara has made it plain that there are other instances of corruption, I would guess primarily out of Albany, that he is going to go after. I notice I think Wednesday, Mr. Libas's son, Libas is the majority whip for the Republicans in the Senate, or maybe he's assistant deputy majority leader. I'm not certain what they call it. But his son has just been convicted on a fairly serious charge, and Libas, as you know, is also under indictment for a much more minor charge, lying to some FBI agents or something, which, in many ways is kind of hard to prove. So he may well get off, but the fact is, I think Preet Bahara's web is going to be cast pretty widely, and so I think there are a lot of other people in Albany with good reason. From the point of view of we taxpayers, Mr. Bahara is going to move in pretty vigorously. Now, I don't know, maybe there's somebody who can stop him somehow slow him down, but I don't know that Governor Cuomo at this point is going to be eager to do that as long as they leave him alone.
We're talking with Professor Robert Heineman. We're talking about the corruption in Albany, which is widespread and sadly affects both parties, but primarily New York City Democrats.
Yeah.
How did the Democrats get such overwhelming control in the state assembly?
Well, I think that goes back to Speaker Steingut maybe 20, 25 years ago in terms of redistricting. And so what's happened has been the Assembly Democrats have drawn the districts so that, and they're basically equal in population. They have to be basically equal, but you can draw them so that the Democrats have a tremendous advantage in terms of elections in these districts. And what's happened over the years has been, of course, that the Senate typically, often, let's not say typically, but often controlled by the Republicans, defers to the Assembly and says to the Assembly, you draw your districts and we'll draw our districts. And the result is you end up with a stranglehold for the Democrats on the New York State Assembly. And I think we've discussed this before, Kevin, but the congressional seats, the districts for the congressional seats, obviously the state legislature has a lot less interest in those. And what happened last time was basically a federal judge came in and ended up redrawing, not to a great extent, but redrawing some of the congressional districts. And they look a lot more sensible, frankly, in terms of competition among the two parties. But no, the Democrats and what's interesting here, I think, is who is going to be the next speaker. As you know, Joe Morelli from Monroe County is the interim speaker now, showing, I think, that a lot of people have some confidence in his objectivity and the fact that I'd be very surprised if Joe Morelli has any tint of corruption about him. He's a very nice guy. He's very straightforward. So he's the interim speaker. But there's four contenders, all of them from Queens, Brooklyn, Manhattan, and I'm not certain where the other one, all downstate, that want that spot. So it's going to be very interesting to see.
They'll get it. Yeah, and they'll get it, too, won't they? I mean, the Democrats from the city, many of whom have got rather jaded pasts, will undoubtedly pick one of their own. In fact, one of the representatives from Harlem apparently is the front runner now, and Morelli is not given much chance since he's upstate. Those guys don't even know where upstate is. Well, let's move on to national politics.
All right, I would just say this: when you have four contenders from downstate, Morelli might have a shot at slipping in there if they basically kind of kill each other off. So I wouldn't count him out at this point. But no, you're right. The odds are pretty long there. Go ahead, Kevin.
By national politics, President Obama seems to have a way of sticking it to people. Let me give you an example. Sticking it to the American people, most of whom think he's not handling the terrorist thing very well at all. He lets people out of Gitmo who have very, very bad records, and then does it just a day or two after they've shown that people we have released in the past have ended up with major positions in the terrorist organization.
Yeah, well, first of all, he's trying to empty Gitmo out, and second of all, what can we do with those people in Gitmo? We keep them there forever? So my view is, I guess I would let them out too. And if they join a terrorist organization, that's their business. But if they do join a terrorist organization, then I think we can deal with them a lot more definitively than we are dealing with them now. And so I don't have any problem with that, frankly. I mean, we've held them for how many years already, and some of them, I don't know, some of them have actually undertaken military action against the U.S. or not. I mean, one of them I think was Osama bin Laden's chauffeur or something of the sort. I mean, I suppose they're all pretty dangerous people, but if they get out and they join a terrorist organization and we get a chance to shoot them, I think we should do that.
Should Obama, in your opinion, start calling these guys Islamic terrorists or Islamic radicals, or continue the way he is? I have some thoughts on that too, by the way. But go ahead. What do you think?
Well, I really don't have any use for that kind of argument. I don't know why the press is making a big thing about it. The ability of the press to deal with the superficial trivia of the day is constantly amazes me. Frankly, I don't care what he calls these people as long as he keeps them away from us. But you got to understand, the man, he is our first third world president. And so he does have roots in the Islamic community, having gone to Madras, through sixth grade or something like that in Indonesia. So he may well have some feelings there one way or another. I can't, frankly, I can't get too concerned about that. But go ahead, Kevin. Tell us your thoughts.
Well, I was talking to a Muslim recently who said, when you say Islamic terrorists, you're throwing all of us in one side of that equation, all Muslims, and that doesn't go down well with them. So he said Obama is right in not calling them jihadists or Muslim terrorists, and I tend to agree with you. What difference does it make if he's doing his job? And that raises another question. Is he doing his job with ISIS? Is he really trying to drive them out? The reporters that I watch on TV, and I've been watching too much of it lately, they've been saying that if the American people will not tolerate putting troops in there. I don't know where they get that information from. I think a lot of Americans would love to see our troops go over there and destroy ISIS, which they certainly could do. What's your view on that?
Well, I think I think your point, when you state it to the effect that we'd like to see American troops go over there and destroy ISIS, yeah, well, that's kind of self-fulfilling. The fact is, sending American troops over there may not destroy ISIS, or it may destroy ISIS and find us in the middle of between the Syrian rebels and Assad's regime, between the Sunnis and the Shiites in Iraq. To put it mildly, and I think you would agree, it's not a clear-cut kind of situation. And so Obama's view is, and this has kind of been his view with the Boko Haram, and I think a simple-minded statement he made here, 5 or 6 weeks ago about our success in Yemen. His view is these guys got to work these things out themselves. And I don't know whether they can or not. I mean, you have some powers there in the Middle East that certainly could step in and do some constructive endeavors, the Iranians, the Turks, the Saudis. But I think the reason Netanyahu is coming over here is he's afraid that President Obama is just going to let this drift. And that is a real threat to the Israelis. I don't think there's any question about that.
Dr. Bob, our time is gone.
Oh.
As usual, you've made a very weak defense of the Republicans. But I suppose when that's your party, you have to do that sort of thing.
Well, I did want to talk to you just briefly about Hillary Clinton, who has pretty much disappeared. The New York Post notes that in the last 6 weeks, she's made only 2 public appearances, and both those were in Canada. So, Kevin, think on this a little bit, and perhaps the next time you and I meet, you can explain that to me.
Well, Bob, it'll be a pleasure, but bring your notebooks with you because I may go too fast.
All right. Well, I've enjoyed talking to you today, Kevin.